you want an exposure to a market or an
Everything they need in one place.
Be the world's foremost authority on
Individuals, advisors and institutions. Hello and welcome to the Morningstar series, Ask the Expert. I'm Emma Wall and here with me today is Tony Stenning, Head of UK Retail for BlackRock.
Hello,
Morning.
Tony.
Morning, Emma.
So we're here today to talk about the latest Investor Pulse survey. This has basically looked at people's attitudes towards pensions and the changes coming in April with retirement. What are people saying they're going to do?
This is really interesting, Emma. We've interviewed over 2,000 people in the UK. That's part of we think the world's largest actually investor pulse, really testing what people their attitudes are. And what it's told us is that, probably dispelling a few myths here, the baby booming kind of generation, the 55 to 74-year-olds, whilst they recognise that the state's not going to be there for them, they're not really ready for retirement. In fact, 4 out of 10 of them aren't specifically saving for retirement.
And one of the most alarming stats for me, looking through the numbers, was that some people are saying they're going to take all of their cash out at retirement, which they're allowed to with the new rules, but put it into cash. And I'm just looking at the figures. At the moment, the most you can get on a cash account, 2.5% if you look at away for 5 years. That's from the post office. That's from Virgin Money, sorry. Or if you want easy access, just 1.4% from the post office. I mean, that's not really going to help them grow, help them beat inflation in the long term.
Absolutely right, Emma. And this is a real challenge. So great news, come April, much more flexibility and you can get much more access to your money. Fantastic. Challenge is that comes with a huge amount more sort of responsibility, and I think people just aren't necessarily ready for that. If you look at their assets right now outside of the pension, 2/3 of that sitting in cash, despite the fact that we've had pretty much, you've just articulated, and they're better than interest rates have been for a little while, been pretty much zero for the last sort of 5+ years. But yet still people want that safety blanket, and they're not understanding really that cash machine isn't working. So our concern is, as you rightly said, that 1 in 10, when they get post-April, are now going to go, I'll take my cash because it's my cash, and I'll put it into the cash in the bank account because I want to maintain the pound. I want to maintain the certainty of the outcome. But the challenge is, as you rightly said, with interest rates where they are, and although inflation is falling, that's still eating away the purchasing power of their money.
And this sort of separation between concept and reality seems to be a theme throughout the survey. I was looking at the sort of income people would say they ideally like in retirement, and that's around £23,000. But when you asked how much they thought they'd need to provide that income, they said around £300,000. £304,000, and actually it's around £441,000. So that's quite a difference.
Yeah, I mean that's mind the gap. As you find out on the tube, and there's a sort of a reality misconception here, and a lot of that is to do about not thinking sort of as long term as perhaps they should, and not getting their savings away early enough and working as hard as you possibly can for you, and I think that's where you get this gap of reality, and I think people's mindsets haven't really readjusted to this new world that we live in, with much lower rates of interest, much lower rates of return that you can get from these so-called safe haven assets. So that's going to come up perhaps as a bit of a unwelcome wake-up call for people come post sort of April next year.
And we've talked a little bit about the problems, being aware that cash really isn't going to deliver real returns after inflation, and be aware of the fact that you actually probably need to save quite considerably more if you're going to get your target income in retirement. Well, what about solutions? I mean, what can people be doing now to help, mitigate those risks?
So there's a few things they can do. This is the good news. And there's a real challenge here, though, that whilst they recognise that the state's not going to be there to be the backstop for them, particularly now, and also post-April, 8 out of 10 of them don't know where to go to get income-generating assets. That's a worrying statistic there, and that's really important because the earlier you can start investing, the more that you can let your money get out, as I said earlier, and work for you, the more chance you really have when you hit that retirement age, whenever that is. And I think people are going to go into this sort of semi-retired state for a few years, because the more you don't draw down your pool, the longer you can make that work for you, the better you'll be. So I think we asked this population particularly, if you could get in the DeLorean, go back in time and see your younger self, what would you say? and they said three things. Firstly, they would take a much longer term view. I don't leave it all in cash. I think it's probably the English way of saying that. Secondly, they would invest regularly and review their plan regularly. And thirdly, if they could, they would try to keep their debt under control. That's really important, because what we've identified is there's a strata of savers across every age group that do exactly that, and they are generally better off than the average Brit. If you can do that, you're also twice as confident and in control of your financial future because you're more engaged. So I think that's something you can definitely learn from yourself. Don't make the same mistakes.
And ideally, we would be doing that at 20, 30, 40. But actually, because we're going to be retired for quite a long time, it's not too late to start employing those strategies at 50, at 60.
It really isn't. Okay, I think even in that age group, that 55 to 74, you're getting towards it's starting to get a little bit late in the day, but definitely not. At that 55, 65 age, you've still got a number of years to make your pot work for you. And even as you're approaching the sort of the upper end of that, going into this sort of semi-retired state, gradually reducing your hours, letting your money pick up the slack perhaps from your actual work, let your money do the work for you and pick up that difference.
Tony, thank you very much.
Thank you, Emma.
This is Emma Wall from Morningstar. Thank you for watching.